AAA has already started and the rest of the minors kick off on Thursday. Where are the top prospects going and who should we be looking for in 2023? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, editor-in-chief of BravesToday.com, freelance baseball writer and podcaster. Thank you for making this your first listen. Every single day, we're proudly part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And today's episode is made possible by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook is the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. So, minor league baseball, AAA started on Friday. They've already had their opening day. The rest of baseball starts on Thursday. And for the most part, we now know where most of the top prospects are going to be. Our friends at MLB Pipeline made a handy list. There may be a change or two off of this, but for the most part, this should be accurate. And it's really interesting to see where all the guys are going. Of the top 100 on MLB Pipeline, 14 of those 100 are opening 2023 in the majors, including 4 of the top 5. So Gunnar Henderson, Corbin Carroll, Jordan Walker, and Anthony Volpe. Now, there's only 3 guys that debuted on opening day in Walker, Volpe, and Oscar Colas. But part of that's just simply because there was a bunch that came through last year, and it's still a lot of them. So 32 of top 100 guys are at AAA. 22 are in Double-A, and then 15 in High A and 6 in Low A. And I think when you think about the composition of a top 100 list, right, you are looking at the overall ceiling of the player. How good can they be if everything hits? But you're also baking in the risk that they don't become a big leaguer or hit that ceiling. And so thinking about the extra track record that you get from a guy once they're in the upper minors kind of explains why over half the list are guys in the upper minors, and you've only got 21 guys that are starting off in the low minors to start 2023. But looking through here at a couple guys that I'm really interested to see what they do and where they're going to be. The first one is shortstop Jordan Lawlar of the Diamondbacks. Looks like he's going to start at Double-A Amarillo. So 2021 first rounder out of high school, got 100 games last year between A-ball, High A, and then a brief 20-game cameo in Double-A. Hit 303, 401, 509. There's that magical 345 slash line we talk about. 16 home runs, 41 extra base hits, again in 100 games, with 57 walks to 105 strikeouts and 39 of 45 on stolen bases. He's one of those guys that has moved quickly despite not being fully available because of health. So fell to 6th overall in 2021. After 2 games in rookie ball, had a shoulder injury, missed the entire season, which is funny because he's he was the first, I think, of 3 straight Diamondbacks prospects that had a shoulder injury shortly after being signed, between him, Carroll, and Carroll first, and then Lawler, and then Drew Jones. So weird how that works, right? But when you look at what he did, so he did that last year, and then he went to the AFL, to the Arizona Fall League, but didn't spend the whole year there, the whole season there, because he got hit by a pitch and ended up breaking his scapula. Wild injury. But the reason I'm excited to watch Jordan Lawlar is the projections on him and the evaluations on him vary pretty greatly based off of who saw him and when they saw him. He had some nagging shoulder issues last year, just part of the rehab from that labrum injury. And so, depending on it, when you saw him, you either really liked him or you really didn't. So he's still a top 100 prospect to just about everybody. But when I watch Jordan Lawlar, kind of what I see is I think a guy who's a plus hitter and right now projects to be kind of probably an above average versus a plus power guy. Now, granted, there's still physical development you can do. I didn't see a lot of him in spring, so I can't necessarily speak to what physical changes he's made over the offseason, but he's got the frame. He's 6'2". Last I saw, he was about 190, 195. So he has some room to add a little bit of size. And when you look at his tools, just about everything is above average or plus kind of individually. The hit tool to me is a plus. He's got a very, very good approach at the plate, especially for a player so young. He did everything in 2022 at age 19, but very good understanding of where the barrel is in the zone, very good at adjusting to what a pitcher is trying to do to him, and being able to get the barrel on the ball. The bat speed's really good, so even if the overall power isn't mind-blowingly great yet, again, I kind of see it right now as an above-average ceiling on the power, but that can grow with physical development because he was only 19. You still see a guy that walks plenty. He walked 57 times in 100 games, strikes out right there about once a game, which is kind of the limit of what we want to see before we start to be concerned about it, so no real worries there. And then didn't have like egregiously bad swing and miss in the zone and things like that. He can catch up to velocity pretty well. He can adjust to an off speed. So a lot of things to like there. Now, defensively, I understand why some people were questioning his ceiling as a defender. He's got plus speed and he's got a plus arm. But when you look at the stats, he committed, I think, around 30 errors in those 100 games last year, and a lot of them were throwing errors. It's something where he's got the arm strength, it's the internal clock, and the accuracy of the throw. If he's trying to rush this on because he's worried he doesn't have time to get the runner, he might actually have time and could stand to gather for a second before he throws, but he rushes the throw. It's an inaccurate throw. Runner can take extra bases. So I can see some stuff like that, but the overall tools that you need to stick at shortstop. He's got good quickness. He's got good instincts. I think you can see that by the stolen base numbers, 39 of 45. You combine speed and the instincts, you're pretty successful when it comes to stealing bases. He's got the lateral quickness. He's got that kind of quick twitch first reaction. He's got everything that you need to be a good defensive shortstop, and I think you can easily say he'll be an above average shortstop. He can stick, and he'll be able to do it at an above average level. I'm kind of backing off on saying plus right now, but at least above average to me makes sense. Now, as he puts on some of this healthy weight, if the speed slows down and or the defensive range gets hurt, then you might have to look at maybe a third base situation. But for right now, I see him as a guy that probably should have the highest ceiling in this organization. I think he can be a very, very good defensive shortstop. I think he can be a very good hitter at the plate. And so opening at Double-A, if everything goes well, if he stays healthy, I could see a scenario where by the end of the year, you're discussing, does he get a cup of coffee in the bigs, get those 20 games in so he can be primed for a Rookie of the Year campaign next year. The other guy in the high minors that I'm really excited to watch is Endy Rodriguez, the catcher for the Pirates. And it's kind of obvious when I explain why I'm excited to watch him. So 2018 IFA by the Mets is traded to the Pirates. 125 games last year between high A, Double-A, Triple-A. Slash line 323, 407, 590. Not only did he hit 345, he almost hit 346. 25 home runs, 68 extra base hits, and 125 games, so more than one every other game, with 60 walks to 101 strikeouts, 4-7 on stolen bases. So he's a switch hitting catcher that, again, 300, 400, almost 600 last year, walked more than 10% of the time, struck out less than 20% of the time, and projects to have plus power and the defensive versatility to play multiple positions besides just catcher. makes perfect sense to be super excited to watch what Endy Rodriguez does. When I talk about playing multiple positions, last year, he spent 75 games at catcher. He also played 18 at second base. He played 13 in left field. And so the thought process is he can play first, he can play second, he can play left field. He could probably cover third base in a pinch if you needed them to, but you're looking at a first base, second base, left field, and catcher player here. Offensively, very good, like pure hitter, 60 grade. It's something where very good at controlling the zone, having a game plan when he goes up there, and having the pitch recognition to execute that game plan. The power consistently came in both swings. Not something you see a ton from switch hitters. Sometimes they'll have the lefty swing will be the power swing because they can pull stuff, and the right-handed swing won't. Came in for both of them. Really good swing decisions. His exit velo isn't actually that mind-blowing. It's high quality contact. When he makes the decision to put a power swing on the ball, it's a pitch that he can hit and he can drive, and he does. So very impressed about that. Defensively, he improved significantly last year when it came to his throwing accuracy, so he could catch guys trying to steal. He had an above average arm, but in 2021, he threw out 17% of base stealers. Last year in Double-A Altoona, he was there for about 30 games, so it's a smaller sample of about a month, but 45% caught stealing. Did much better with that. Has the agility to be a good blocker. Again, still working on some of that, a little bit raw. He was sharing time with Henry Davis for a little while, and so that was part of it. He wasn't getting consistent play time behind the plate. The game management skills, from what I've read, from what people I've talked to, they all seem to be there. Has to do work on framing, and whatever happens with the automated balls and strikes, which we'll talk about that later in the show, that may determine how quickly you could see him get up. But again, I could see him in a situation similar to MJ Melendez in Kansas City, where he can catch, and then days you don't have him catching, he can play first base, second base, left field. He can play 5 days a week, 6 days a week, maybe catch 3 or 4 of those, and still be in the lineup every day to give you plus power and a plus hit tool. In just a minute, I've got a couple players in the low minors that we're really excited about that I want to make sure that we have covered. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and so FanDuel has a bunch of promotions right now because they are America's #1 sportsbook. You can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Safe, secure, super easy to use. Cool thing is, you don't have to actually go bet on basketball. You can bet on baseball using the same promos that they have out there right now. American League Rookie of the Year. Some of these stats have changed. As of Tuesday, Gunnar Henderson, still the favorite. Anthony Volpe, plus 450, is behind him. Matsutaka Yoshida, who we talked about on yesterday's show, is having a very impressive debut in MLB, plus 500. And then after that, there's a gap before you get to Tristan Casas at plus 1,200. Grayson Rodriguez, who's in the minors still, at plus 1,500, and Hunter Brown at plus 1,800 for the National League. Again, Corbin Carroll, Jordan Walker, neck and neck. Plus 350 for Carroll, plus 400 for Walker. Right behind them, Cody Senga, plus 700. Miguel Vargas, plus 1,100. Ezekiel Tovar, plus 1,100. Here's a new one. James Outman at plus 1,200. The Dodgers just continue to have dudes all over every single award, every single odds page for awards. It's kind of ridiculous. But don't miss your chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets back when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Okay, looking at the lower minors, again, you don't have a ton of guys on this list that are in the lower minors. 21 of the top 100, according to MLB Pipeline's top 100, are projected to be in the low minors. First one that I'm really excited to see is Jackson Merrill. He's projected to go to High A Fort Wayne, and I'm excited to see him in a full season of competition. So 2021, he got 31 games in rookie ball after the draft, okay? 2022, he gets 10 games in rookie ball, and they're like, yeah, we need to move you up. He spends 45 games in low-A Lake Elsinore. Combined slash line in those 55 games between rookie ball and A-ball, 339, 395, 511. Very close to a 3.45 on the slash line. 6 home runs, 23 extra base hits, 20 walks to 44 strikeouts, and 11 of 16 on stolen bases. What I want to see is he put on, heading into the draft, he added like 30 pounds of muscle. And so the raw power, this power ceiling went from below average to average up to above average. He seemed to struggle a bit, both in pre-draft workouts and when you saw him in that brief glimpse in low A, when he faced guys that had high velocity or guys that had really good spin, which, if you think about it, he came out of the Baltimore, D.C. area. I think he went to like Severna Park High School in Maryland, which you don't think of places like that as being places that have really good prep performances on the showcase circuit. So struggled a little bit against those. I thought as the year went on, he got pretty good against off speed, and he got pretty good as a lefty facing other lefties as a 19-year-old. Looked really good there. I like the swing. I think it's a plus swing. Again, I think the power's probably above average. He's got to learn the launch angle and getting the ball up in the air versus just making the solid contact. You got to get the barrel so that you can grow into that power. But I absolutely do think that the power is going to end up being above average. Defensively, another thing where he got really good last year. There were some questions when he got drafted, would he stay at shortstop? He got really good with his range. His arm strength looked a lot better as the year progressed. And so it looks like, yes, he is a guy that can stick at shortstop. Now, his top line speed is probably only average. I think that's probably his lowest rated tool. Everything else is above average or plus. But he does a pretty good job so far with the baseball instincts and then adjusting his positioning based on a scouting report of what he, like where this guy likes to hit the ball, what the spray chart looks like, and things like that. And then just from what I've read, from what I've been told, very good makeup. So I look forward to seeing what he can do on a full season in professional baseball, because that's one of the biggest tests for these young 19, 20-year-olds is what it looks like when you play 90 games in the minors. What does it look like for you? And again, the challenge of going to high A in your age 20, you are, I want to say he'll be 20 this year. He'll actually be 20 in looks like about 2 weeks. Happy early birthday, Jackson Merrill. I want to see what it looks like for the entire year there. Obviously, the Padres have tons of options because they've got so many guys in that middle infield between Ha-Seong Kim, Xander Bogaerts signed long-term, Manny Machado, to the point they had to move Tatis to the outfield. So I think he has the quick enough hands to move to second. He has a good enough arm to move to third. And so I expect that based on the speed, you're probably not looking at him going anywhere in the outfield except for maybe left. But I just want to see what he does in a full season, see where else they play him. And then I want to see what he does on the base paths. 11 of 16 steals-wise last year. When he gets into high A and you don't quite have the ABS and some of the different systems, what happens there? The other guy, real quick, outfielder Miguel Bleis of the Boston Red Sox. He's going to go to full season ball. He spent 40 games in rookie ball after being a 2021 IFA last year. 301, 353, 542. 5 home runs, 23 extra base hits in the 40 games. So again, more than one every other game. But 10 walks to 45 strikeouts, more than once a game. 18 of 21 on stolen bases. I want to see what Miguel Bleis does with the strikeouts. And I want to see, can he bring up the on-base percentage? He struck out almost 27%, and then the walk rate was down to about 6%. And a lot of that was issues on like with swing decisions, right? He would swing and miss on a breaking ball, and then he'd be fooled by an off speed. So I want to see full season ball. One, how can he do physically holding up for a full year? And then two, what do his swing decisions at the plate look like? I think he's probably average-wise as far as hit tool. The power tool's absurd, somewhere between 60 and 70. Massive exit velocities. A lot of the complex league has TrackMan, so we can see some of that stuff. Can handle fastballs perfectly fine. It's off-speed and breaking stuff he has to get better with. So I want to see what he does because, again, your power tool is only as good as your hit tool. And then I just want him to continue getting experience on professional hits to the outfield so he can work on the reads, routes, reactions. He looks very smooth. I think he'd be an above average center fielder or a plus right fielder, but I think he athletically has the skills to be a plus defender in center field with more work on the reads, routes, reactions. So we're going to watch for that while he's in full season ball this year. In just a minute, let's talk about the rule changes in the minor league because they are changing the way the game is played again in the minor leagues. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends with the Ultimate Pro Baseball GM app. We've talked about this before. It's a game where you control every single aspect of your organization, hiring coaches and staff, managing the finances to be able to afford the guys you want in free agency, scouting and drafting players, then dealing with all of those personalities as you go all the way through a season, trying to figure out everything from selling tickets, all of that. It's fun because you can play on the go whenever you want. You don't have to deal with paying to play. You don't have to deal with real life time restrictions on when you can do certain things. You play when you want, as you want, wherever you are. You can make leagues with your friends. We have a league amongst the other Locked On MLB hosts. I've said it a couple times before, but Jeff Ellis, Locked On Guardians, very good at this game. He probably should go work for a Major League Baseball team because he is good at every single aspect of this game. I've got a great farm system, but we're still trying to strike that balance between trading prospects for big league talent and hoarding prospects to eventually have a great and cheap big league team. I'm still working on that a little bit. So, Locked On MLB Prospects listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when you use the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, visit probaseballgm.com. If you're on YouTube, you can scan the code on the screen, or you can look it up in the App Store. It's probaseballgm.com, the ultimate baseball GM app. Start your dynasty today. As baseball does, they are changing things in the minor leagues again. We've got rule changes for 2023. A lot of them are tweaks of things that we've already seen and are only slightly different from what's been there in the past. But there is one big change that nobody's really talking about. So, some of the things that aren't that different. The pitch clocks are being tweaked. So they're going to be in play everywhere where there's a full season. So the Complex League, the Dominican, not going to have those, but everybody else will have them. The pitch clock will be set with the bases empty to 14 seconds, not 15, like in the big leagues. With runners on, in the big leagues, it's 20 seconds. In AAA, it'll be 19. And in Double-A and lower, it'll be 18. So I've been talking about they should add 3 to 5 seconds to the clock. MLB's looking at taking up to 2 seconds off the clock with runners on base to see how the game flows. Okay. They're still doing they are changing it from 9 seconds to 8 seconds for the batter to be alert to the pitcher. It was 8 seconds for MLB. It was actually 9 in the minors last year. So they're making that the same. The only exception to this is if you are a major leaguer who is down to rehab. If you are rehabbing in the minors and you are a major league player, you are on the 27-man roster, but you're injured, whatever, you get the MLB clock. You don't get the minor league clock. So if you're a pitcher, you get 20 seconds with runners on, not 19 or 18. One of the big changes is on the pickoffs. In MLB, the big league level, the way it works is you get 2 disengagements. If the runner advances, the disengagement count resets. And the disengagement is just a pickoff attempt or just stepping off, right? In the minors, you get 2, And if a runner advances, it does not reset. So if you throw over twice to first base, and then that guy steals second, you can only, if you try to pick him off at second, that's your third attempt. And you have to pick him off or he automatically advances to third. So it's going to be, they're trying to see if they can juice the running game even more. And again, if this is something that happens, you may see this at the major league level next year. The bases, sticking with the 18 inches, but they've discussed about if they don't like the stolen base levels, they have the ability to move second base completely inside the baseline so that it's even a little bit closer. And that's a whole thing. There's, long story short, it depends on where you measure to get the distance from first to second, from second to third. Is it the outside of the bag towards outfield, or is it the inside of the bag? They're discussing they may measure it from the outside of the bag. And so the entire second base would be in the base path and would be even closer. The defensive restrictions, the same. The shift rules are the same. The Florida State League is bringing back that pie slice thing, which is where middle infielders not only can't be right on that dividing line between the second baseman and the shortstop. Pitch comm is going to be in AAA, but only AAA, not Double-A or lower. And the only person that can wear a receiver is the active pitcher, a catcher, and a pitcher warming up in the bullpen, and only the catcher can send signs. So not like the MLB level where it can be either way. The automatic balls and strikes system is going to be used in AAA this year, but they're changing the way that it works, okay? So what'll happen is the first 3 games of a series in AAA will be the full automatic balls and strikes. So the umpire will have an earpiece and it will tell him ball or strike and he will call the play. The second 3 games, the back half of the series, games 4 through 6, because they're off on Mondays, they play 6-game series. Games 4 through 6 will use the ABS challenge system. The umpire will call balls and strikes like normal. Each team gets 3 challenges, and a reminder, only the pitcher, the catcher, and the hitter can make the challenge. You have to make the challenge virtually immediately. I think what I saw was within like 5 seconds of the call from the umpire. In the dugout, there will be iPads issued by MLB that will show real time what the ball, like why it was called a ball or a strike, the path of the ball and all of that stuff, like you see on StatCats and things like that for MLB games. So again, the first half will be full automated balls and strikes. The second half will be the challenge system. I like the challenge system better, but that's kind of how that's going to work. That starts in the Pacific Coast League, the West Coast AAA games. That started last Friday on opening day. For the International League, the East Coast stuff, that starts April 19th. They had some technical stuff to do first. And then they're changing in the Florida State League in low A. They're testing out 2 different strike zones. In Daytona, and just Daytona, that strike zone is going to be a little bit larger as far as like the height of the strike zone, using reported heights of the players as measured by a third party, with the players barefoot, not wearing shoes or cleats. So, and then they have they reserve the right, they've said, to test a rounded corners strike zone where it's not necessarily a perfect square. Again, you round the corners off in the strike zone to try to avoid the strikeout where, a sweeper just barely nicks a corner of the zone on its way down and away from a hitter, and there's no way they could have hit that. So we'll see that. The big change that no one's talking about is the baseball in the Southern League. So those of you on YouTube, I'm holding an official Southern League baseball from last season. So they are giving Double-A, the Southern League, the exact same baseballs used in Major League Baseball, made by Rawlings, the exact same specifications as far as how tightly the core is wound, the stitching, everything. Not a different baseball. It's the exact same baseball. But they've worked with Dow Chemical to create what they call a grip-enhanced baseball. It is a baseball that has a tacky substance pre-applied before the balls are shipped to the teams. And the idea here is, from the beginning of the season in Double-A all the way until the midpoint of the season, so July 13th, because they have a first half and a second half. They are going to use the new grip-enhanced tacky baseballs. And they're not going to give them rosin and let them use other substances to enhance the grip on the ball. And then the second half, they're going to go back to the baseballs that have the traditional Delaware mud rubbed on them. They want to test velocity, spin rates, and all of that stuff, as well as control and get feedback from the players on a pre-tacky ball, kind of like what they use over in some of the foreign leagues, versus giving you a ball that's been rubbed with mud, because an MLB ball out of the box is almost slick. The leather is like very smooth. And so they rub the baseballs with the mud for consistency of grip, and then they let you use rosin to enhance the grip. The idea here is if this works, they're going to stick with just the grip-enhanced baseballs. So we'll see those in the first half. I've already got some scouting trips planned in the Southern League for the first couple weeks of the season. And I've already talked to some folks within some organizations to get my hands on one of those balls so we can do a separate video and a separate podcast talking all about these baseballs, the differences in how it feels, the differences in the metrics on how it performs, and figure out, is it a good thing or a bad thing to change over to these balls. Fantastic week this week. Reminder, if you have questions for the mailbag on Monday, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm. You can email us, lockedonmlbprospects@gmail.com, or drop your questions in a Locked On MLB Prospects Discord. Links in the episode description, links in the show notes. Until tomorrow's show, remember, it's always a good time to pay a minor leaguer.